Admiral Catherine Brooks stood on the bridge of the UHS Valkyrie watching the endless stars through the main viewing screen. 3 years had passed since the last shots were fired in anger, and the galaxy still trembled at the mention of humanity's war fleets. The Zephyrian hegemony learned the hard way that humans from Earth were not like other species. The crystalline dominion discovered that beings from a Deathworld fought with a fury that defied all logic and reason. Captain Ryan Mitchell walked up beside his commanding officer and handed her the daily patrol reports. Nothing unusual had happened. In the Outer Rim territories for months now, the alien empires that once threatened human colonies now gave their ships a wide berth. Fear was a powerful teacher, and both defeated civilizations had learned their lessons well. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations while the massive dreadnought continued its patrol route along the border systems. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Harper monitored the long-range sensors from her position at the science station. Chief Engineer Maria Santos kept watch over the ship's power systems from the engineering deck below. Everyone knew their jobs and did them with the calm efficiency that had made human forces so deadly in combat. A soft chime from the communications console broke the peaceful routine. Ensign Bobby Chun looked up from the station with confusion written across his young face. He had been monitoring the standard channels when something unexpected appeared on his screens. Admiral Brooks, I'm receiving an encrypted transmission on emergency frequencies, Chun reported while adjusting his equipment to get a clearer signal. The encryption is definitely alien, but not from any species in our database. Brooks moved to the communications station and studied the data scrolling across the displays. The signal was weak and breaking up, but clearly artificial in origin. Someone or something was trying to make contact with the human fleet using protocols. That suggested they knew about Earth's communication standards. Can you clean it up enough for translation? Brooks asked while Chun worked his controls with practiced skill. Working on it now, Admiral. The signal is coming from about 2 light hours away near the edge of the system. Whoever is sending this is using a lot of power to reach us, Chun replied as the static slowly cleared from the transmission. Captain Mitchell studied the sensor readings and frowned. No ships had been detected in that area during their regular sweeps. If someone was out there, they were either very good at hiding or their technology was unlike anything humans had encountered before. The translation program finished processing the alien message and displayed the results on the main screen. Everyone on the bridge fell silent as they read the words that would change everything. To the commanders of the human Deathworld fleet, we are the Nexari coalition and we seek immediate sanctuary. Our worlds burn and our people flee before an enemy that consumes entire star systems. We know what your kind did to the Zephyrian hegemony and the crystalline dominion. We know you are feared throughout this galaxy as the most dangerous species ever encountered. This is why we come to you now in our darkest hour. We need the protection of those who ended 2 empires. Admiral Brooks read the message twice before speaking. The aliens knew about humanity's military campaigns and specifically mentioned the Deathworld, classification that Earth carried in most galactic databases. They were asking for help from the same fleet that had brought 2 major civilizations to their knees through sheer bloody-minded determination. Sensors, do you have anything on long-range scans? Brooks asked while considering the implications of the alien request. Lieutenant Harper ran another sweep of the outer system and shook her head. Nothing on standard sensors, Admiral, but if they're using stealth technology, we might not detect them until they want to be found. The bridge crew waited for orders while their commanding officer weighed the options. Humanity had learned to be suspicious of alien contact requests after too many betrayals during the recent wars. The Zephyrians had used false distress calls to lure human ships into ambush. The crystalline dominion had sent fake diplomatic missions that turned out to be assassination attempts. Captain Mitchell moved closer to the Admiral and spoke quietly so only she could hear. This could be another trap. Both previous enemies tried similar approaches when they were losing the war. Brooks nodded, but something about this transmission felt different. The aliens had not tried to hide their knowledge of human military capabilities or pretend to be peaceful explorers. They openly acknowledged Earth's reputation as a deathworld and humanity's status as the galaxy's most feared warriors. Send. A response, Brooks decided after several minutes of consideration. Tell them they have permission to approach, but they will be scanned and boarded if they want sanctuary. Make it clear that any hostile action will result in their immediate destruction. Jun transmitted the Admiral's message and waited for a reply. The response came back within minutes and contained detailed scans of their own vessel along with biological data about their species. The aliens were clearly desperate enough to reveal military secrets that most civilizations would never share with potential enemies. Admiral, they're transmitting everything we might want to know about their ship and crew. Full technical specifications. Weapon systems, even their biological weaknesses. Shen reported with amazement in his voice. Lieutenant Harper studied the incoming data and looked up with surprise. Their vessel is badly damaged and showing multiple hull breaches. Life support is failing and they have hundreds of injured aboard. If this is a deception, they're certainly committed to making it believable. The alien ship finally appeared on the main viewing screen as it approached the human fleet. The vessel was unlike anything in Earth's databases, with elegant curved lines that spoke of a peaceful civilization. Scorch marks and gaping holes in the hull told the story of a recent battle against an overwhelming enemy. Brooks made her decision and turned to Captain Mitchell. Take the Titan and escort them to Docking Bay 7. Full security teams and medical personnel standing by. If they're lying about their situation, we'll know soon enough. Captain Mitchell saluted and left the bridge to carry out his orders. Admiral Brooks remained at her post watching the damaged alien vessel as it limped toward sanctuary with the human fleet. She wondered what kind of enemy could drive an entire civilization to seek help from the same species that had terrorized two galactic empires. The Nexari ship docked with the UHS Titan 30 minutes later, and the first refugees came aboard. Their appearance shocked even the experienced human crew members who had seen many different alien species during the recent wars. These beings looked fragile and peaceful, with large eyes that spoke of intelligence and compassion rather than military cunning. Commander Veltar was the first alien to step onto the human ship, and he moved with the careful dignity of someone trying not to show fear. The Nexari leader looked around at the armed human marines and nodded with what might have been gratitude or simply relief at finding sanctuary. "Thank you for answering our call," Veltar said through his translation device. "We know what your species is capable of in war. We hope that same strength can protect what remains of our people." Admiral Brooks watched the first contact through the security cameras and felt a chill run down her spine. The Nexari refugees looked like victims rather than potential threats, but humanity had been fooled before. Time would tell if this was genuine desperation or another elaborate trap designed by an enemy that had studied human weaknesses. The galaxy held its breath as the most feared military force in known space took in refugees from an unknown threat. Whatever had driven the Nexari to seek help from humanity's deathworld fleet was about to reveal itself and change the balance of power throughout the stars. Captain Greg Walsh watched the Nexari refugees settle into the modified quarters aboard the UHS Titan and tried to hide his concerns from his crew. Admiral Brooks had ordered him to house nearly 3,000 alien survivors on a ship designed for combat rather than humanitarian missions. The decision had created tension throughout the fleet as many officers questioned the wisdom of trusting another alien species. Commander Jake Peterson had been the most vocal opponent of the rescue operation when the fleet commanders met to discuss the situation. Peterson commanded the destroyer UHS Warhawk and had lost too many friends during the wars with the Zephyrian hegemony to trust any alien requests for help. His arguments carried weight with other captains who remembered similar deceptions from previous enemies. "We're making the same mistake we made with the Zephyrians," Peterson had said during the heated meeting. "They came to us with stories of oppression and requests for military aid. We helped them fight their enemies only to discover we were the real targets all along." Admiral Brooks had listened to all the arguments before making her final decision. But the doubt remained. Chief Engineer Maria Santos worked around the clock to modify life support systems for their alien guests while her human crew grumbled about the extra workload. The Nexari needed different atmospheric mixtures and temperature, ranges that pushed the ship's environmental systems to their limits. Dr. Amanda Clark found herself overwhelmed with injured Nexari refugees who had suffered terrible wounds during their escape from the unknown enemy. The alien physiology was completely different from anything she had studied during medical training. Their bodies were fragile compared to humans with thin bones and delicate organ systems that seemed designed for a world without predators or natural disasters. "They're like living flowers," Dr. Clark reported to Captain Walsh after examining dozens of patients. "Beautiful and complex, but completely unable to defend themselves against any serious threat. I've never seen a species so physically vulnerable to violence." The medical examinations revealed disturbing facts about Nexari biology and culture. Their homeworld had been a paradise with stable weather patterns and abundant resources. No large predators had ever evolved to hunt them, and natural disasters were almost unknown. They had developed advanced technology through peaceful cooperation rather than the competitive struggle that had shaped human evolution. Commander Veltar spent hours in debriefing sessions with Captain Mitchell and the intelligence staff, sharing information about the threat that had destroyed his civilization. The enemy called themselves the Devourers, and they consumed entire star systems in their quest for raw materials and energy. Unlike the previous alien empires that had fought humanity, these machines showed no interest in conquest or diplomacy. "They do not negotiate or make demands," Veltar explained through his translation device while displaying holographic images of the destruction. "The Devourers arrive at a system and begin immediate harvesting operations. Planets are stripped of all useful matter while stars are drained of energy to power their fleet. Nothing organic survives the process." The intelligence data painted a terrifying picture of systematic genocide on a galactic scale. The Devourers had already consumed 3 neighboring galaxies and were now turning their attention to this region of space. Dozens of civilizations had been completely eliminated without leaving any trace of their existence behind. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Harper studied the tactical information and felt sick at the implications. The Nexari coalition had once controlled 50 star systems with billions of citizens living comfortable lives on garden worlds. All of that was gone now except for the refugees crowded aboard human ships. "How many ships do they have?" Captain Mitchell asked while reviewing the sensor logs from the Nexari fleet's final battle. "Our scouts estimated over 10,000 vessels in the main force," Veltar replied with obvious pain in his voice. "Each ship is larger than your biggest dreadnought, and they fight with perfect coordination. Individual Devourer units are linked through quantum communication networks that allow instant tactical updates across vast distances." The numbers were sobering even for veterans of humanity's recent wars. Earth's entire military had fewer than 500 ships of all classes, spread across dozens of systems. The human fleet that had defeated 2 empires would be outnumbered 20 to 1 against this new enemy. Captain Walsh found himself questioning Admiral Brooks' decision to get involved in another alien conflict. Humanity had paid a terrible price for their previous military campaigns, with millions of casualties and entire worlds left in ruins. The survivors had earned their peaceful retirement after proving that beings from a Deathworld could triumph over any enemy through sheer determination and tactical brilliance. The crew of the Titan began to understand the scope of their situation when more refugee ships arrived throughout the day. Each vessel carried similar stories of worlds consumed by mechanical predators that showed no mercy or interest in prisoners. The Nexari had tried everything they could think of to stop the Devourers, but their peaceful nature had left them completely unprepared for total war. "We built defensive satellites and shield generators around our most important planets," one refugee engineer explained to Chief Santos while she helped repair their damaged ship. "The Devourers ignored our weapons and simply absorbed the energy from our shields to power their own systems. They turned our defenses against us." The human engineering teams were impressed by Nexari technology despite their military failures. Their ships used exotic matter reactors that produced enormous amounts of clean energy. while their manufacturing systems could reshape matter at the molecular level. Under different circumstances, such advanced capabilities would have made them a formidable opponent for any enemy. Dr. Clark made a disturbing discovery while treating the most severely injured refugees in the medical bay. Many Nexari showed signs of psychological trauma that went beyond normal combat stress. They had witnessed something so terrible that their minds were having trouble processing the memories. "They keep talking about the sound," Dr. Clark reported during the daily briefing. "According to the refugees, the Devourer ships produce some kind of noise that drives organic beings insane. Several patients have described hearing the screams of their entire civilization being processed for raw materials." Admiral Brooks reviewed all the intelligence reports while her fleet continued its patrol route through human space. The Nexari refugees had provided detailed information about Devourer capabilities and tactics, but the overall picture remained grim. Humanity was facing an enemy that had never been defeated and showed no signs of weakness or compassion. The political implications were equally troubling as news of the refugee crisis spread through human space. Many colonial governments demanded that the military focus on defending Earth's territory rather than fighting another alien war. The recent conflicts had drained humanity's resources and left many star systems vulnerable to attack. Commander Peterson continued to argue for abandoning the Nexari refugees at the next neutral port where they could seek help from other species. His position gained support among some fleet officers who remembered the cost of humanity's previous attempts to help alien civilizations. The debate split the command structure as captains chose sides based on their personal experiences during the recent wars. Captain Walsh found himself caught between conflicting loyalties as he watched Nexari families trying to rebuild their lives. Aboard his ship, the alien children played games that reminded him of human kids, while their parents worked alongside his crew to repair damaged systems. These refugees did not seem like the cunning enemies that had deceived humanity before. The situation reached a breaking point when long-range sensors detected multiple contacts approaching from the direction of former Nexari space. The signatures matched Devourer vessels according to the refugee databases, and they were heading directly toward the human fleet's position. Admiral Brooks called for battle stations as her ships prepared to face an enemy unlike anything they had fought before. The Nexari refugees watched in terror as human crews went about their combat preparations with calm efficiency. They were about to discover why beings from a Deathworld had earned their fearsome reputation throughout the galaxy. "All ships report ready for combat operations," Captain Mitchell announced from his position at the tactical station. Admiral Brooks studied the approaching enemy contacts and made the decision that would define humanity's future in the galaxy. Instead of running or negotiating, she chose to fight despite being outnumbered and facing an unknown threat. "Signal the fleet," Brooks ordered while the Devourers closed the distance to weapons range. "We stand our ground and protect the refugees. If these machines want to harvest the system, they'll have to go through us first." The human crews prepared for battle while their alien guests realized they had found something precious in this dangerous galaxy. They had discovered a species that would fight hopeless battles to protect strangers and never surrender even when facing certain death. The Devourer scout fleet emerged from hyperspace like a plague of mechanical locusts descending upon the human formation. Captain Susan Taylor watched from the bridge of the UHS Ragnarok as 18 enemy vessels arranged themselves in perfect geometric patterns that spoke of machine intelligence rather than organic tactical thinking. Each ship was twice the size of her heavy cruiser and bristled with weapons that defied human understanding of physics. Admiral Brooks had positioned her fleet between the Devourers and Sanctuary Station, where thousands of Nexari refugees waited for evacuation. The defensive formation looked pitiful compared to the approaching enemy force, but every human ship maintained perfect discipline while their crews prepared for what might be their final battle. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of the UHS Titan beside Captain Walsh, watching the tactical displays with growing horror. The Nexari leader had seen this same formation destroy entire star systems during the fall of his civilization. No force had ever successfully resisted a Devourer attack, and most species surrendered rather than face complete annihilation. They will offer terms before the attack begins, Veltar warned through his translator while studying the enemy movements. The Devourers always give organic beings one chance to submit peacefully before beginning harvest operations. The alien warning proved accurate when a transmission arrived on all frequencies written in perfect standard Galactic. The message was simple and chilling in its mechanical precision. All organic life forms had exactly 10 minutes to surrender their vessels and prepare for processing. Resistance would only delay the inevitable outcome and increase suffering for everyone involved. Admiral Brooks read the demand and deleted it without responding. She had not fought two galactic empires to surrender to a bunch of machines that thought organic life was nothing more than raw material to be harvested. The human fleet would give these Devourers a lesson in why beings from Deathworlds were feared throughout the galaxy. All ships prepare for combat, Brooks ordered while checking her weapon systems one final time. Show these machines what happens when they threaten humanity and our allies. The battle began when the 10-minute deadline expired and Devourer weapons opened fire with devastating precision. Energy beams that could melt through planetary crusts struck human shields and armor with terrible effectiveness. The UHS Defender exploded in the first salvo, taking 300 crew members with her while debris scattered across space like metallic snow. Captain, Taylor watched her fellow humans die and felt the familiar rage building in her chest. This was the same fury that had driven her species to victory against impossible odds throughout their bloody history. Earth had forged humanity in combat against predators and natural disasters that would have destroyed weaker civilizations. Now, these mechanical parasites would learn what it meant to face apex predators from a Deathworld. Take us straight at their command ship, Taylor ordered her helm officer while damage reports flooded the communications channels. All power to forward weapons and prepare boarding pods for immediate launch. The UHS Ragnarok accelerated toward the largest Devourer vessel while enemy fire concentrated on her reinforced hull. Taylor's crew worked with desperate efficiency to keep their weapons online as armor plating melted under the concentrated bombardment. Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez rerouted power from life support to give the main guns more energy for the final attack run. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Murphy led his Marine assault teams in a boarding action that violated every rule of space combat taught in military academies. The human soldiers wore vacuum suits designed for extended operations in hostile environments while carrying weapons that could function in any atmospheric condition. They launched themselves from torpedo tubes toward enemy vessels like living missiles programmed for maximum destruction. The Devourers had never faced opponents willing to board their ships during active combat. Their tactical programming included no protocols for dealing with organic beings who treated vacuum warfare as routine rather than suicidal madness. Murphy's Marines cut through mechanical defenses using plasma torches and explosives, while advancing toward critical systems deep within each enemy vessel. Commander Veltar watched the human assault teams with amazement as they accomplished things his people had never imagined possible. Nexari military doctrine emphasized defensive strategies and minimal casualties, while humans seemed to view death as an acceptable cost of victory. The aliens were witnessing the fundamental difference between species that evolved in safety versus those that clawed their way to sentience on worlds that actively tried to kill them. Captain Walsh coordinated the fleet's defensive efforts while refugee ships evacuated Sanctuary Station under the protection of his guns. The UHS Titan took severe damage from Devourer weapons, but her crew kept fighting with the stubborn determination that had made humanity famous throughout the galaxy. Chief Santos worked miracles in the engine room, keeping power flowing to weapons and shields despite multiple system failures. The decisive moment came when Captain Taylor realized her ship was doomed but still had enough power for one final attack. The UHS Ragnarok had lost main engines and most of her weapon systems, but the fusion reactors remained intact and could be overloaded to create a massive explosion. All hands abandon ship, Taylor ordered while setting course for the Devourer command vessel. Emergency evacuation in 60 seconds. Her crew protested the suicide mission but followed orders like the disciplined soldiers they were. Captain Taylor remained at her post to ensure the ramming attack succeeded while escape pods launched carrying her people to safety. The UHS Ragnarok struck the enemy flagship at maximum velocity and both ships vanished in a nuclear fireball that lit up the entire system. The explosion disrupted Devourer coordination protocols and gave the human fleet the opening they needed to press their attack. Lieutenant Colonel Murphy's boarding teams had already disabled 3 enemy vessels by destroying their quantum communication arrays and severing the network links that allowed perfect tactical cooperation. Major Tony Rodriguez led a strike team into the largest surviving Devourer ship carrying nuclear charges designed to cripple the vessel's power systems. The mission required the Marines to fight through mechanical defenders while navigating alien corridors filled with toxic atmospheres and crushing gravity fields. Commander Veltar insisted on accompanying the human assault team, despite warnings about the dangers involved. The Nexari leader wanted to understand how these Deathworld warriors could accomplish things that his entire civilization had failed to achieve. Rodriguez accepted the alien volunteer but warned him to stay close and follow orders without question. The strike team penetrated deep into the Devourer vessel while fighting mechanical guards that adapted their tactics with each encounter. The machines learned from every engagement, but humans had spent millennia fighting opponents that could kill them with superior strength or speed. Rodriguez's Marines used improvised weapons and creative tactics that confused the artificial intelligence, directing their enemies. "Plant the charges here and here," Rodriguez told his demolition specialist while studying the alien power core. "We need to disable their main reactor without destroying the entire ship. The intelligence data we can recover might save millions of lives." The nuclear charges detonated with perfect timing and crippled the Devourer vessel's ability to continue fighting. Major Rodriguez led his team toward the extraction point while emergency systems failed throughout the alien ship. Commander Veltar struggled to keep up with the human soldiers as they moved through collapsing corridors with practiced efficiency. The final explosion came when the Devourer ship's containment systems failed and released energies that had been harvested from dozens of consumed star systems. Major Rodriguez pushed Commander Veltar into an escape pod and sealed the hatch while staying behind to ensure the charges detonated properly. "Tell the Admiral we got their command ship," Rodriguez said through the CUM system while radiation levels climbed beyond lethal thresholds. "Maybe now these machines will think twice before threatening humanity's friends." The evacuation pod launched carrying Commander Veltar to safety while Major Rodriguez died alongside the Devourer vessel in an explosion that could be seen from neighboring star systems. The Nexari leader watched through the viewport as another human hero sacrificed his life to protect strangers from a species he had never met before. Admiral Brooks surveyed the battlefield after the surviving Devourer ships retreated in confusion. Humanity had lost 4 vessels and over 1,000 crew members, but they had achieved something that no other species had managed. The Deathworld fleet had defeated a Devourer attack force and saved the refugees who had come seeking their protection. The cost of victory weighed heavily on everyone who survived the battle, but the human crews felt satisfaction in proving once again that beings from Earth would fight impossible odds to protect the innocent. They had shown the galaxy that mechanical efficiency was no match for organic determination when that determination came from a species forged in the crucible of a Deathworld that never showed mercy to the weak. The victory at Sanctuary Station left the human fleet battered and demoralized. Despite their tactical success against the Devourer scout force, Admiral Brooks counted the cost of their intervention while medical teams worked around the clock to treat wounded crew members from multiple vessels. The battle had proven that humanity could fight these mechanical predators, but at a price that threatened to destroy them through attrition. Commander Jake Peterson stood in the wardroom of the Warhawk addressing fellow captains who shared his concerns about the fleet's current mission. The destroyer commander had lost close friends during the recent battle and blamed Admiral Brooks for getting involved in another alien conflict that served no human interests. We cannot afford to fight every war in the galaxy, Peterson argued while displaying casualty reports on the main screen. Humanity barely survived the campaigns against the Zephyrian hegemony and the Crystalline Dominion. Now, we're supposed to sacrifice more lives for refugees from a species we met 3 days ago. Captain Walsh listened to the arguments while thinking about the Nexari families aboard his ship who were trying to rebuild their shattered lives. The alien children had drawn pictures of their destroyed homeworlds and given them to human crew members as gifts. Their parents worked alongside his engineers, learning to operate unfamiliar systems with the desperate hope of contributing something useful to their protectors. The political debate reflected deeper divisions within the human military about their role in galactic affairs. Many officers believed that Earth's forces should focus on defending human colonies rather than serving as protectors for every species that faced extinction. The costs of previous conflicts had been enormous and the benefits remained questionable. Dr. Amanda Clark provided a different perspective during the heated discussions by sharing intelligence gathered from treating injured Nexari refugees. Her medical examinations had revealed crucial information about the devourers that could help humanity defend itself against future attacks. The enemy we're facing is unlike anything we've encountered before, Clark explained while showing biological data to the assembled officers. The Nexari refugees carry genetic markers showing exposure to quantum manipulation technologies that we barely understand. These machines don't just destroy civilizations, they erase them completely from existence. Commander Veltar attended the briefing as an observer while his translator converted human speech into forms his mind could process. The Nexari leader had spent days studying humanity's military history and was amazed by their ability to defeat opponents with superior numbers and technology. Through sheer tactical innovation, the alien archives revealed the true scope of the devourer threat in terms that made even experienced human officers pause with concern. 3 entire galaxies had been consumed over the past millennium, with billions of civilizations reduced to raw materials for the machine fleet's expansion. No species had ever successfully resisted their advance until humanity's Deathworld warriors proved that victory was possible. Admiral Brooks called for a fleet-wide assembly to address the growing dissent among her commanders and crew members. The meeting took place aboard the UHS Valkyrie with representatives from every ship participating through secure communication channels. The Admiral knew that her next words would determine whether humanity continued to fight or abandoned the Nexari to face extinction alone. I understand your concerns about getting involved in another war, Brooks began while facing the camera that broadcast her image throughout the fleet. We've all lost friends and family members during our recent conflicts. The scars from those battles will never fully heal, and the cost of victory was almost more than we could bear. The Admiral paused to let her words sink in before continuing with the main point of her address. Every person listening knew that she had personally led combat operations during the bloodiest campaigns in human history. Her credibility came from shared sacrifice rather than political appointment. But we cannot ignore the threat these devourers represent to everything we fought to protect. Brooks continued while displaying intelligence data gathered from the refugee ships. They don't negotiate or show mercy to defeated enemies. They consume entire civilizations and move on to the next target without pause or regret. Captain Mitchell stood beside the Admiral providing tactical analysis of the enemy capabilities. Based on recent combat experience, the battle at Sanctuary Station had revealed both strengths and weaknesses in Devourer technology that could be exploited by human forces, using unconventional warfare doctrine. Their ships are individually superior to anything in our fleet, Mitchell admitted while highlighting key points from the tactical assessment. But they rely on networked intelligence and predictable responses to organic behavior. We can use their mechanical nature against them by being unpredictable and chaotic in our approach. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Harper presented her analysis of the quantum communication systems that allowed perfect coordination between Devourer vessels. The enemy's greatest strength could become a critical weakness. If human forces could disrupt or manipulate the network connections during combat operations, We've learned to fight opponents who think like us, but these machines operate on completely different principles. Harper explained while showing technical diagrams captured from destroyed enemy vessels. They cannot adapt to truly random behavior, or understand sacrificial tactics that serve no logical purpose. The discussion revealed that humanity's reputation as Deathworld warriors came from their willingness to embrace chaos as a weapon against more organized opponents. The Zephyrian hegemony had fallen because they could not predict human responses to military situations. The Crystalline Dominion collapsed when their perfect defensive strategies met opponents who treated impossible odds as merely difficult challenges. Commander Veltar was invited to address the human assembly and share his perspective on the conflict that had destroyed his civilization. The Nexari leader spoke carefully through his translator while trying to convey the desperate situation facing organic life throughout the galaxy. My people tried every reasonable approach to stopping the Devourers, Veltar explained while displaying images of the final battles for Nexari space. We built massive defensive installations and negotiated mutual defense pacts with neighboring species. We appealed to ancient laws and offered tribute to avoid conflict. None of it mattered because machines do not understand concepts like mercy or compromise. The alien testimony had a profound impact on human officers who recognized similar patterns from their own military history. Earth's survival had depended on their ancestors' ability to fight enemies that showed no mercy or interest in peaceful coexistence. The predators that shaped human evolution never negotiated with their prey. Chief Engineer Maria Santos provided crucial technical information about Devourer construction methods that she had discovered while studying captured components. The enemy ships were built using matter compression, techniques that created incredibly dense materials but also introduced potential structural weaknesses. Their hulls are stronger than anything we can produce, but the manufacturing process creates stress points that could be exploited, Santos reported while highlighting vulnerable areas on the technical schematics. A properly placed explosive charge could cause cascading failures throughout their entire vessel structure. The briefing concluded with Admiral Brooks presenting her strategic assessment of the overall situation facing humanity and their new alien allies. The Devourer main fleet was approaching through the Outer Rim territories and would reach human space within months. The choice was between fighting them now while preparing defensive positions or waiting for the inevitable assault on Earth's colonies. We can retreat to our home systems and hope the Devourers find easier targets elsewhere, Brooks stated while looking directly at each of her senior commanders. Or we can stand our ground and prove once again that beings from a Deathworld will fight to protect the innocent regardless of the cost. The vote was close, but humanity's warriors chose to continue the fight rather than abandon their principles. Commander Peterson and his supporters remained opposed to the decision but agreed to follow orders despite their personal objections. The fleet would advance toward Nexari space and attempt to stop the Devourer main force before it could continue its harvest operations. Dr. Clark made a final discovery while analyzing genetic samples from the most severely traumatized refugees. That changed everyone's understanding of the enemy they faced. The Nexari survivors showed evidence of psychological manipulation on a quantum level that went beyond simple terror or despair. The Devourers don't just kill their victims, Clark reported during her final briefing before the fleet's departure. They process consciousness along with physical matter and use the resulting data to improve their tactical responses. Every civilization they consume makes them more effective against future opponents. The revelation sent chills through the human command structure as they realized the true horror of Devourer harvest operations. Their enemy was not just collecting raw materials, but stealing the memories and experiences of entire species to enhance their own capabilities. The Nexari home system lay before the human fleet like a graveyard of dreams and broken promises. Admiral Brooks watched through the main viewing screen as the Devourer mothership began its systematic harvest of the civilization's birth world, while dozens of smaller vessels stripped resources from surrounding planets. The mechanical predators worked with terrifying efficiency, converting organic matter into raw materials for their endless expansion across the galaxy. Captain Mitchell, studied the tactical displays showing enemy positions throughout the system, and felt his heart sink at the overwhelming odds they faced. Over 50 Devourer vessels defended the Harvest operation, while the human fleet could barely muster 20 functional warships after their recent losses. The number suggested a hopeless battle, but Admiral Brooks had not brought her people this far to retreat at the final moment. Commander Veltar stood beside the human officers watching his homeworld, being consumed by the same machines that had destroyed everything he had ever known. The Nexari leader felt grief beyond measure, but also hoped that these Deathworld warriors might accomplish what no other species had managed. They were about to witness humanity's final answer to the question of organic survival in a hostile universe. Oh. Ships break formation and engage independent targets, Admiral Brooks ordered while her fleet advanced toward the enemy positions. No coordinated attacks or defensive lines. Make them guess what we're going to do next because we don't know ourselves. The human vessels scattered like seeds in a cosmic wind, while adopting the chaotic tactics that had made them legendary throughout the galaxy. Captain Walsh led the S-Titan in a suicidal charge toward the enemy mothership, while smaller destroyers harassed Devourer logistics vessels with hit-and-run attacks. The machines struggled to predict human movements because the Deathworld warriors were improvising their strategy with each passing moment. Commander Peterson had overcome his earlier objections to lead the UHS Warhawk in a desperate assault on the enemy communication arrays. His destroyer dove through crossfires that would have vaporized most vessels, while his crew worked frantically to disrupt the quantum networks that coordinated Devourer operations. The young commander who had once opposed this mission now fought with the fury of someone, defending his adopted family. Chief Engineer Maria Santos achieved the impossible by developing a computer virus that exploited the Devourer's inability to comprehend truly irrational behavior. Her program infected their tactical networks with random decision trees based on human emotional responses rather than logical calculation. The machines began making errors as their coordination protocols collapsed under the weight of organic unpredictability. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Murphy led Marine boarding parties in vacuum assaults that defied every rule of space combat ever written. His soldiers launched themselves at enemy vessels using nothing but personal maneuvering units and magnetic grapples while carrying weapons designed for close-quarters fighting. The Devourers had no defensive protocols for opponents who treated hard vacuum as their natural environment. Dr. Amanda Clark coordinated medical operations while simultaneously analyzing captured Devourer technology for weaknesses that could be exploited by human forces. Her dual role as healer and intelligence analyst embodied humanity's pragmatic approach to warfare, where every resource was used to maximum advantage regardless of traditional boundaries between disciplines. The turning point came when Captain Mitchell led the UHS Valkyrie in a ramming attack against the largest Devourer vessel defending the mothership. His crew had volunteered for the suicide mission after calculating that their sacrifice could disable enough enemy units to give the rest of the fleet a fighting chance. All hands brace for impact, Mitchell announced while his ship accelerated toward the enemy at maximum velocity. It's been an honor serving with the finest crew in human space. The collision created a nuclear explosion that crippled 3 Devourer vessels and opened a gap in their defensive formation. Admiral Brooks led the surviving human ships through the breach while enemy forces struggled to adapt their tactics to opponents who embraced destruction as a viable military strategy. Sergeant First Class Danny Cole fought alongside Commander Veltar in the corridors of the Devourer mothership while nuclear charges detonated throughout the massive structure. The human Marine had accepted the alien refugee as a brother in arms after watching him risk his life to save wounded soldiers during the boarding operation. "Stay close and keep moving," Cole shouted through his helmet cum while enemy defenders closed in from multiple directions. "These machines don't understand retreat, so we have to make them fear advancing." The Nexari leader marveled at the human soldier's ability to remain calm under impossible circumstances while fighting enemies that had destroyed his entire civilization. Commander Veltar finally understood why species throughout the galaxy feared these Deathworld warriors more than any other threat they had encountered. Chief Santos achieved her greatest triumph when her virus reached the mothership's central processing core and began corrupting the collective intelligence that directed Devourer operations across multiple star systems. The machines experienced something resembling confusion as their logical frameworks collapsed under assault from purely organic reasoning patterns. Target their quantum communication hub? Santos transmitted to all human vessels while monitoring the virus's progress through enemy networks. If we can sever their connection to the main fleet, we might actually win this thing. The final assault required every surviving human ship to concentrate their fire on a single target while Devourer reinforcements converged on their position. Admiral Brooks knew that her people had one chance to end the harvest operation before being overwhelmed by superior numbers and firepower. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Harper coordinated the attack from her position at the tactical station while damage reports flooded the communication channels. Human vessels were dying one by one, but their sacrifice was buying time for the critical strike against the enemy command center. The Valkyrie shuddered under concentrated enemy fire as her shields failed and armor plating melted under the bombardment. Admiral Brooks remained at her post directing the fleet's final attack while her ship disintegrated around her. The command crew worked with desperate efficiency to maintain weapons lock on the Devourer mothership's most vulnerable point. All remaining vessels target grid 77 Alpha, Brooks ordered while explosions rocked her bridge. Pour everything you have into that section and don't stop firing until your magazines are empty. The combined human attack overwhelmed the mothership's defenses and penetrated deep into its core systems where Chief Santos' virus had already begun its destructive work. The resulting explosion released energies harvested from dozens of consumed civilizations in a chain reaction that consumed the entire Devourer fleet. Commander Veltar watched from an escape pod as the mechanical predators that had destroyed his people died in nuclear fire created by beings from a Deathworld who refused to surrender. The human fleet had been reduced to scattered survivors, but they had achieved something that 3 galaxies' worth of civilizations had failed to accomplish. Admiral Brooks died at her post when the UHS Valkyrie's reactor containment failed, but her final transmission reached every human vessel in the system. Her words became the epitaph for humanity's greatest military victory and the foundation of a legend that would spread throughout the galaxy. "This is Admiral Brooks to all surviving vessels," she said while fires consumed her bridge. "We came here to protect refugees and we're leaving as the species that taught machines the meaning of fear. Tell the galaxy that humanity's Deathworld fleet stands ready to defend the innocent against any threat." The aftermath of the battle left both human and Nexari survivors struggling to comprehend what they had witnessed. A small fleet of damaged warships had defeated an enemy that had consumed entire galaxies through the simple expedient of refusing to accept defeat as a possibility. Commander Veltar transmitted his final report to the scattered remnants of his civilization while rescue ships collected survivors from the wreckage of both fleets. His message would become the foundation of a new alliance between species that had learned to value sacrifice over survival. "We sought refuge with humanity's Deathworld fleet and found something more precious than safety," Veltar concluded while watching human and Nexari crews working together to rebuild their shattered vessels. "We discovered beings who will stand against the darkness regardless of the cost and call it honor rather than madness." The Devourer threat had been ended, but both species understood that new enemies would eventually emerge to challenge organic life in the galaxy. When that day came, they would face it together as allies forged in the crucible of desperate battle against overwhelming odds. Construction began within weeks on hybrid vessels that combined human weapons doctrine with Nexari technology, while joint training programs taught each species the other's approach to survival in a hostile universe. The partnership between Gardenworlders and Deathworld warriors created something unprecedented in galactic history. Years later, when historians studied the battle that saved organic civilization, they would focus on the moment